When we were looking at all the people that we could have on the air today to talk about this, and, you know, everybody, all the talking heads are out, all the politicians are out on both sides, we thought, let's see, who doesn't switch sides all the time? Who is not doing the calculus in their head of, okay, wait a minute, how am I supposed to answer this week? The name, of course, Mike Lee comes to mind immediately, a guy who just plays it straight the whole time. Mike, welcome to the program. How are you?
Doing great. Thank you very much, Glenn.
Senator from Utah. So tell me, Mike, what the hell what happened?
You know, it was a surprise to all of us. It was certainly a surprise to me. I learned about it through the news yesterday afternoon, no prior warning. In short, I think part of what happened, at least, was that Jim Comey had become the issue. And even he, I think, would acknowledge that that isn't good for the FBI director himself to become the issue. And so I think that's what happened. I don't know of the timing for the announcement. I don't know whether that was right. And I don't know where this goes from here. But I think once the issue, I think it became much more likely that they would end up making a change at the Department of Justice.
Okay, so I agree with that we can't have a celebrity. We can't have somebody who is polarizing in that position. We just want a no name just to make the calls like an umpire. You know, I just want somebody in that position who's wearing the black and white stripes, and not because they're in prison, but because they're an ump. And and there's no celebrities in Umptown. Here's the thing that the Democrats are using, and I'd like to get your view on this. They are in the middle of apparently some investigation of the people in his administration. Did that play a role? Was this appropriate for him to fire him? I mean, he made it very clear, Trump did, in the firing letter. You told me three times that I'm a good guy and I'm not part of an investigation. He made that very clear that this had nothing to do with that investigation. But does it, I mean, do you know what's happening with the investigation and the grand jury possibly being called?
I don't. I have absolutely no idea. From my standpoint, that is not only unknown, but unknowable at this point. That's one of the reasons why this has gotten a lot of attention, though, is that people see an investigation going on as to Russia's involvement with last year's election, and people see the possibility or the suspicion that this might have been connected with that. Now, the publicly stated reason indicated that it was not that it had to do with management reasons.
But is there any reason, Senator Mike Lee, that this came up out of the blue yesterday and he had to be fired in the middle of giving a speech? I mean, why the sudden, we got to get him out of here? Any idea?
I do not know. Some have speculated that, we have a new Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein, and he's very well respected, and he's been in place for only a couple of weeks, just barely having been confirmed by the U.S. Senate overwhelmingly. He did make a recommendation on this, and that recommendation involves Mr. Comey's dismissal. And the fact that he's been in office only a short period of time perhaps explains some of the timing. I really don't know. But again, this wasn't run by us in advance. We had no advance notice, nor do I have any inside information as to what they had in mind. There are rumors circulating suggesting that there was a lack of trust generally between the White House and Mr. Comey. One can understand that a lack of trust generally, a lack of trust as to his willingness to be impartial, as to his ability to treat things with confidentiality during the pendency of an investigation would be of concern. But I have no idea whether any of those things.
I mean, I think that would have been the same if Hillary Clinton were in office. There would have been a lack of trust. Can you tell me anything about McCarthy, Andrew McCarthy, the guy that's coming in? Isn't he an Obama guy?
Yeah, I don't. I'm not a good witness on that at this point. I wish I could give you information on that, and I just can't.
Is there talk in the hallways today? We see Schumer out. Is there real talk in the hallways today, like there was last night? We're in a constitutional crisis. This is Nixon. This is Watergate. We demand hearings. Is there a real push on the Hill for that? And will anything come about from that, Mike?
There's definitely a push to try to create the appearance of a crisis. I think that's a mistake. I think it's short-sighted at this point. If people have information demonstrating impropriety, that's one thing. But anytime you suggest a constitutional crisis, you got to be prepared to back it up with actual arguments, with actual facts that tie into actual constitutional arguments.
No, that doesn't
I
matter
haven't
anymore.
seen those yet.
Mike, the idea that Comey had become the sort of center of attention and maybe a personality in a role where you don't want personality, and part of that is his own doing, I think. But outside of that, who is he? Is he a good guy? Did he do a good job? I mean, taking out sort of the way the press has handled this, do you stand by Comey and the job that he did?
Look, I personally really like the guy. And I've known him for more than, I don't know, what's been 12 or 13 years. He was a high-ranking Department of Justice official, the Deputy Attorney General. At the time, I was a federal prosecutor in Salt Lake City, an assistant U.S. attorney. He came and visited our office, shook hands with each of us, got to know each of us, gave us a pep talk. He was a prosecutor's prosecutor. I mean, he told us these great stories, and he explained to us, if you woke me up in the middle of the night and asked me, who are you? I would tell you I'm an assistant United States attorney. This guy knew how to motivate federal prosecutors, knew how to relate to us, knew how to explain to us that he had empathy with us, that he understood we had to see things as federal prosecutors that no one should have to see. He is a very likable human being. So, yeah, personally, I love the guy.
Was he a guy, do you believe that because we've heard from both sides, as both sides loved him and then hated him, that the FBI, the agents didn't like him because he was, flying off the handle and there was no trust between him and the system, not above but below. Is that true, do you think?
I have heard that. I suspect some of it is exaggerated. But again, we have to remember the culture of the FBI. This is a place that has deliberately, since the days of J. Edgar Hoover, eschewed anything that looks like open, bold partisan activity. There was a special agent in charge, I believe in Louisiana a few years ago, who was fired before lunch after he did an interview one morning in which he acknowledged that someday he might possibly consider running for public office. They had fired him from Washington, D.C. before lunch the day that happened. So that shows the culture within the FBI. They really like to eschew anything that looks political. And so this guy, having waded into the political thicket, whether wittingly or otherwise, avoidably or not, definitely ran afoul of some of that culture.
Is there any reason, Mike, to be concerned? Again, people are talking about, a dictatorship. And I have to tell you, if President Obama did this, I would be very concerned. President Trump has done this. I'm very concerned. But most people are picking partisan sides. Is there anything lasting to this that we should worry about? Is there anything that was done that kind of is sending a message to us that we should be hearing?
Well, look, this is another one of those instances where only time will tell. The White House stated plausibly legitimate, facially valid reasons for making a change. If, in fact, the Federal Bureau of Investigation is in disarray, if, in fact, it's not working the way it should, and there's been an erosion of trust there among and between agents and within the Department of Justice, then that's a problem. And time will tell, will prove out those facts if indeed those are those facts. If, in fact, the reason was something different than that, then people will have cause to be concerned. I have no way of knowing what that will be. I normally start when somebody gives a facially valid explanation by assuming that that's true until proven otherwise.
So the Senate hearing that was happening, the subcommittee hearing that was happening on Russia and everything else, Mike, is a giant circus. I mean, there was nothing useful that is coming out of that at all. We're not talking about who actually leaked the information from the federal government and the White House. We think we know who it is, but nobody seems interested in going after that. And quite honestly, it doesn't seem like anybody was really interested in going after, a foreign government tried to influence the elections. And I don't care who it is. If it was Hillary Clinton, if it was Barack Obama, if it was Ted Cruz, if it was Jesus, I'd want to know what exactly happened. And I don't get the impression that anyone in Washington is really that interested in finding out either one of those questions. Am I reading it wrong?